what was said or what degree the conversations went on, but it was pretty clear to the authorities that there was major trouble here, that hijackings had taken place. We are told, though, that there was not significant time between that realization and the hit of the planes in the World Trade Center really to issue any kind of warning. The most interesting clues, as it might turn out, may come from the plane that really did the least amount of damage. This was a flight that took off from Newark bound for San Francisco. Now, that's a pretty long flight, maybe 5.5 hours or so, and it was a good hour into the flight. It went all the way up normally across Pennsylvania. It got up into northeastern Ohio, and from there, normally it would just continue across the Dakotas and then down across the Rockies into San Francisco. But when it got around Cleveland, this plane did a curious thing as well. It turned around, literally did a U-turn, and controllers watched this on radar, and it circled back around across the northern panhandle of West Virginia until it finally crashed in a rural Pennsylvania field near Somerset. This could turn out to be very, very important because this crash scene is by far, as you might imagine, less chaotic than the horrible rubble we see in New York, less chaotic than the Pentagon crash, and that means the cockpit voice recorder may be easily recovered. If they do get that cockpit voice recorder, immediately authorities will start to listen to that tape, and they may know a great deal about who was in the cockpit, what the motives were, what the methods were, and it may go a long way towards explaining these terrorist attacks. Of course, the questions about security will go on for some time, but for now, an entire nation is trying to deal with an unprecedented attack on this country. Our chief Washington correspondent, Bob Schieffer, has been downtown all day monitoring the reaction in Washington. Bob?
Bob, one of those grim little reminders of just how awful this situation was, excuse me, just a few minutes ago on the White House, they lowered the flag to half-staff. Now, flags had been lowered to half-staff back at the Washington Monument on Beyond earlier today, but the White House has just lowered that to the flag to half-staff. Now, there is some news at 7:30 tonight. We are told that the Republican and Democratic leaders of the Congress will hold a joint press conference on the steps of the Capitol to express their support for the president. We're told that they will also say that the Congress will reassemble in session tomorrow in order to pass a resolution of support for the president, a resolution that will call for tracking down and punishing whoever is responsible for all of this. That's the latest downtown. This town, Bob, from one end of Pennsylvania to another, really in a state of shock tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Across the country, Americans trying to deal with the reality of what may turn out to be the worst attack on American soil. We know about the rubble in New York from the Twin Trade Center towers that have come down. We now know that there are a couple of other buildings in the lower part of Manhattan in the Trade Center complex said to be on fire. There is still a considerable destruction tonight at the Pentagon and all around America. We're trying to make sense of the attack as we look at some of the pictures from New York today. We don't have any firm words yet on the number of victims. Of course, the priority now is to treat those people who may be wounded and injured. And search teams are now looking through rubble on a couple of fronts, trying to find survivors. But we do have a couple of grim facts from the airlines. After all, there were 4 civilian jetliners involved in the attack today. These are planes capable of carrying about 250 passengers apiece. There were 4 planes involved. And we thought initially that the death count just from the airline planes alone could be upwards of 800 or so. It turns out that according to United Airlines and American Airlines, some 266 people, that's passengers, flight attendants, and crew, have been killed in all of these crashes. And as of yet, there is no explanation from the FAA as to how these security breaches took place. A couple of points about security. It's long been a criticized point of the FAA policy that the American aviation system depends too much on luck and good fortune. The magnetometers you see, the X-ray machines are put there to catch people walking on planes with guns, and some of the screened bags, some of the checked bags, I should say, are screened. But in large degree, we haven't seen an attack like this in the past, most aviation sources will tell you, because to a certain degree, we have been lucky. Now, we've been telling you through the day that President Bush has not been in Washington, but is heading back to Washington at this hour. Bill Plant has more on that for us now. Bill?
Bob, President Bush started his day in Florida, where he was doing 2 education events One yesterday. He stayed last night in Sarasota, Florida, and this morning he was reading to a group of school children when he got the word. An aide came up and whispered in his ear what had happened in New York when the first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center. He finished reading to the children, and a few minutes later he made a statement, and then got on a plane and said he was heading back to Washington. But as it turned out, the president did not go to Washington. Security concerns were paramount here, and he was taken instead to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. And on the ground in Barksdale, he taped a statement which was later played back for us, and this is what the president had to say at that time to the American people.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended. I want to reassure the American people that the full resources of the federal government are working to assist local authorities to save lives and to help the victims of these attacks. Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts. I've been in regular contact with the Vice President, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Team, and my cabinet. We have taken all appropriate security precautions to protect the American people. Our military at home and around the world is on high alert status, and we have taken the necessary security precautions to continue the functions of your government. We have been in touch with the leaders of Congress and with world leaders to assure them that we will do whatever is necessary to protect America and Americans. I ask the American people to join me in saying a thanks for all the folks who have been fighting hard to rescue our fellow citizens, and to join me in saying a prayer for the victims and their families. The resolve of our great nation is being tested, but make no mistake, we will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
President Bush, that was the videotape that he made outside Shreveport, Louisiana, his second statement of the day. The earlier one, a situation in Florida where he spoke very briefly, had happened about an hour and a half, 2 hours before that statement was made. Russ Mitchell, who's been helping me here at CBS News World Headquarters in New York, has a development and someone to talk to. Russ?
Thank you very much, Dan. And we're here now with Patrick Andre. He works on the 71st floor of building number 2 at the World Trade Center. He's a trading manager at Morgan Stanley. Mr. Andre, thanks for joining us. You were there when the second plane hit. Describe to me what happened.
We were evacuating the 71st floor when suddenly I heard a boom and fire and smoke engulfed the floor, and all the tiles for the ceiling started crumbling down.
The tiles from the ceiling?
Yeah, from the ceiling started, yeah. And at that point, the 2 other co-workers who were with me, we decided to go down the stairs, and leave the building.
You went down 71 flights of stairs. Tell me, you said the building didn't shake, but you obviously felt an explosion.
Yes.
What was going through your head when you felt this?
That I'm making sure that everybody who were on my floor were out of the building, evacuated, and a repeat of 1993 since I was there the last time.
That's right. You've worked in that building for 15 years. You were there in 1993 during the terrorist attack then. Let me go back to you going down 71 flights of stairs. How many people were with you? What did you encounter along the way?
There were about 4 people with me at that point, since we were the last one to leave the 71st floor. And in mid-level, we encountered a young lady who was an handicap with crutches and asking for help. And between the three of us, we helped her down to the lower floors.
Now, when you got downstairs to the bottom
Yes.
of the building, what did you think? What was the first thing that you did?
That we got some fresh air. Yes, and the police and FBI agents were there guiding everyone out of the, to move out of the building. And so it was a relief, really.
Describe the scene, what you saw when you looked outside.
Fire.
Fire.
From building number 1, and debris, a piece of steel falling from that part of the building, the front part, into the lower ground. Yes, the ground was covered with steel, glass, paper from those floors, yes.
You had to be frightened.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. Describe that feeling. I mean, here you are. You're actually there. We're looking at it. We're looking at these pictures here, which are just horrific. This looks like downtown Beirut.